Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. HVK all day. Let's get it, man. Alright, so in this video, the topic that I want to talk to you guys about is how I quit caffeine cold turkey, guys. And this is going to be a little 2 week update on, you know, basically, pros and cons of how I'm feeling. Alright, so it's been 2 weeks since I've had caffeine, and I'm going to talk about the benefits that I've gained and the withdrawals at the same time. So, right here, I wrote down a list of things that I have been experiencing. So, without further ado, let's continue. So, I guess I could start off with trying to think if I should start off with the pros or the cons. I guess I could start with the pros, right? So, one of the first things that I noticed, guys, from not drinking caffeine. Well, first of all, let me say this before I continue on the video. I've been drinking caffeine probably since like mid 2023, and it's just been like something always in the background, right? It was something that I would do once in a while, but it was always very habitual. Like once you start getting into caffeine, you kind of start drinking it like almost daily, you know, because it's very like addictive, and it's just like you become dependent on it, right? And at the same time, it's like you're borrowing your own energy, you know. So after you drink the caffeine, you're just gonna feel tired, and it's just like a never-ending loop, you know. So you're basically borrowing your own energy when you're drinking caffeine, and you know every time that you stop, you're gonna have withdrawals, and then the only way to get rid of them is to not drink caffeine or to continue drinking caffeine. And I would find myself being in these weird like cycles where I would just like continue the, drinking it just to like avoid like the withdrawals and then like all this BS, man. But I've been so like tired of, being dependent on something, even if it's like seems innocent, like caffeine. Like it's just a drug, it's a stimulant, and it's just like it's just holding me back. It holds a lot of people back, and they don't even realize it. Okay, like it's an illusion, man. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a big, it's like a big illusion, in your performance, in how you could actually feel as a person. But so I just wanted to mention that real quick, and so let's continue on with the video, man. So the pros, 2 weeks off caffeine. The first thing that I notice is I feel more calm in my mind and in my body. All right, so guys, when you're drinking caffeine, you get that fight or flight type of response, man. So your mind is just, racing, and then your body is just like, you just want to go do something, right? Uh, like it may seem like you're being productive, but it's just like chaotic energy. You know what I'm saying? So that's another reason why I kind of wanted to stop, is because like when you're always drinking caffeine, guys, you just feel scatter-minded. Your mind just feels like very scattered. Your thoughts don't feel as organized as it could be, when you're just not constantly, stimulating yourself, and, being in that state like all the time. So, a calmer mind and a calmer body is, a great benefit to have. Which kind of leads me to my next thing, is feeling more stoic. All right, I just feel more stoic, guys. Like I don't feel like reactive. I feel basically more in control of my emotions. I feel more stoic, more in control of my emotions. Things don't really bother me that much. I just feel very centered, and emotionally stable. Okay. The next thing that I wrote is hair and skin quality. All right. So this happened probably, like, I noticed this like within a week, guys. Like it was very quick. I just noticed like my hair just felt so soft, like it just felt extremely soft, like a cat, right? It just felt so soft. And as well as my skin, I started getting that glow and all that good stuff, man. It's because like caffeine, it dehydrates you, um, it just dehydrates your body, and it's just, it makes you age faster. So like it just depletes your minerals, guys. Like you could be on SR, you could be retaining your energy, but if you're drinking caffeine, it's just gonna kill a lot of the benefits that you would gain compared to not drinking it. Because you're constantly taxing your energy and your nutrients and all that stuff, man. So it's kind of like contradicts itself in a way. Like you could be retaining, but like if you're drinking a lot of caffeine, that could just ruin your benefits as well. So that's another thing that I noticed is, better hair and skin quality. I actually look more youthful. I just feel like more like, what's the word? I just feel more attractive, I guess. And I look different too. Like, your facial features just start to change a little bit. Like when you're not drinking caffeine, you just look more rejuvenated, right? Which leads me to my like more topics that I want to talk about um, further on into the video. But the next thing that I wrote, which ties into the what I was just saying right now, is that you get deeper sleep. Okay, so we basically have 4 cycles of sleep or 4 stages of sleep, and one of the most important stages of sleep is, I think it's like the fourth stage of deep sleep, and that's where you have dreams, guys, and that's where your body like repairs itself, and you wake up feeling rested after like day 3 of not having any caffeine. Bro, I had like vivid dreams, like that's when the dreams started getting vivid after a long time of not having like vivid dreams like that. And that's a good sign. It means that you're resting deeply, okay? Like you're actually getting deep sleep, because a lot of people, you could drink caffeine and you could probably fall asleep that night, but it's the quality of sleep that you're getting. Like a lot of people, don't get as full of a sleep as they could, because the caffeine is constantly still, active in their body. Even if you don't feel like hyped up, it's still lingering, right? So it could affect your sleep. You could randomly be waking up at night, and, it just affects it, right? So the next thing that I wrote for benefit is more stable energy, okay? When it comes to caffeine, guys, like you always, whatever goes up must come down, okay? So you may start off the day just like super hyped up, like motivated, and then like a couple hours later you just feel like dull. You know what I'm saying? You just feel like blah, right? And when you're not drinking caffeine, guys, you just feel, your energy is just more stable throughout the whole day. Even if it's not all like crazy, you just have like this boost of dopamine and all this stuff, man. It's more of like a chill, stable, like a slow burn, right? Instead of just like lighting up like a firework and then just burning out, the energy is just a lot more stable, and you actually become more productive because you're able to, follow things through, without getting like, tired as quickly. Like you still have stable energy, okay, like to get it done, right? So that's another thing that I wrote. The second thing after that is a money saver, right? So you just save money over time, man. I know it's just been like 2 weeks, but like think about all the times that, like if you could have all the money that you've gotten back from spending on caffeine, like imagine how much money you would have. And that doesn't just apply with caffeine. Obviously, like whatever you buy, that doesn't seem like a lot. Like it adds up, $3, $4 a day, $5 a day, $8 a day, whatever, however much you drink or whatever is gonna depend on like how much money you're spending. But that's just the obvious one, right? Like you just save a lot of money, over time. So that's a great benefit right there. Another thing that I wrote is better digestion. Okay, so caffeine, guys, and coffee is like very acidic, you know. So it just like disrupts a lot of stuff like in your gut. And something that I notice is like my digestion just feels a lot better. When I go to the bathroom, it just feels like a lot, like I don't know how to describe it. Like I just feel like my digestion is just a lot better, you know. And the next thing that I wrote is like what kind of ties in together is like going to the bathroom less, you know? Like when you be drinking caffeine, guys, like it just activates your glands, and you're just gonna be peeing like a horse. You're just gonna be constantly peeing and depleting your nutrients, and being all dehydrated out here. So like, yeah, you just go to the bathroom way less, and the water that you're actually drinking, the stuff that you're actually drinking, um, it's able to like actually be in your body instead of you just like pissing it away. Okay. And the same thing with your digestion too, because what I've learned is, caffeine, you know, um, like when you're drinking caffeine, guys, it doesn't let you, like certain foods, like with iron, it's not, you're not getting, your body isn't absorbing as much of the iron and like the nutrients that were in the food, because like caffeine just blocks that, right? So it's not as bioavailable to your body. So a lot of the stuff that you're drinking, a lot of stuff that you're eating, it's kind of going through you a lot more. You're just kind of going to the bathroom quickly, and you're not actually getting the nutritional value from it. Okay, so those two things tie in together. The next thing that I wrote is less desire to consume content. Okay, so when you're drinking caffeine, since it's a stimulant, you're gonna want to do other, like, well, caffeine is like a quick dopamine, right? You get like a quick dopamine from it. You stimulate your nervous system. So things related to that, those those type of things is stuff like scrolling, just watching random BS on on your phone. I find myself having just less desire to just like consume content, you know, because my mind just feels more calm. Um, my nervous system isn't all like amped up, so I'm not like impulsively doing things. That's something that I noticed about caffeine as well, is that when you're drinking caffeine, is you become more impulsive to like things around you. So you become more impulsive in like eating BS foods, or just like consuming like content, and just not really being in control of your mind 100%. So that's something that I notice, is like less desire to just be on my phone and just watch videos or whatever the case is. I don't even use social media, guys. Like, it's just social media is just so like robotic, you know. It's just a waste of time. It's just, yeah, it's an agenda, like, it's just to give you like that short attention span and dumb you down with all this endless content with no substance, right? So yeah, man, less desire to consume content. All right. Next thing I wrote is a natural high, especially like if you're retaining, guys, if you're on SR, you're keeping your energy, you're sober, you're cutting off the caffeine, you're gonna feel high regardless. You're gonna feel just high on life, right? Like, you're just gonna be looking around, you're gonna be looking at the trees blowing like in the wind. You're gonna be like just very present in the moment. I guess that's another benefit, is like I feel more present in the moment. Like I said, I don't feel scattered minded, like how you would feel like if you're drinking caffeine a lot. I just feel more present, more stoic, and more like in the moment, right? So when you're out like in nature, you just feel like you're just there, like, and that kind of ties into the what I just talked about, is like less desire to consume content. So you're gonna find yourself actually being more in the moment, instead of just being on your phone and just being all stimulated like with these cheap dopamine hits, right? You actually start getting more fulfillment from just like the real dopamine, like hitting the gym, or being out in nature, watching the sunset, like hanging out with somebody that you care about. um you feel good naturally, you got that natural high. So that's something that I wrote down. Another thing, well, the last thing that I wrote down on pros is more hydrated. All right, so that kind of ties into what I just said right now, is like you just feel more hydrated, man. You're not constantly depleting your nutrients from always going to the bathroom, and whatever you eat, it's able to absorb like those nutrients from that type of stuff, right? Because you're not constantly going to the bathroom, and it's just more absorbed by your body. Okay, and I actually got some electrolytes in here, right? So now that I talked about the pros, I want to talk about the cons, right? So, what are the withdrawals that I have experienced from 2 weeks of no caffeine? All right, so the first thing that you will notice, guys, when you're quitting caffeine is that you get a headache, right? Everybody experiences a headache when they stop drinking caffeine. And you will notice this after like 2 days, okay? Like the first day, nothing really happens. The first day of not drinking caffeine, nothing really happens. It's still heavily in your system. But when you start noticing the effects of the withdrawals is like probably like over 24 hours after your last caffeine drink, okay? So on the second day, you just feel like a headache. And the reason for that is because caffeine restricts the blood flow in your brain by like 30%, which is actually pretty crazy to think about, bro. It's a vasoconstrictor, or I can't think of the word exactly, but you know what I mean. Like it just constricts your blood flow, your natural blood flow. So when you stop drinking caffeine, you kind of get like a rush. Like a lot of blood just goes to your head, which causes headaches. Okay, and that's pretty crazy to think about. That's why like people like get like dizzy or they feel lightheaded off the caffeine, is because you're basically, and it gets like less oxygen to your brain. So like you ever been on caffeine and you just feel like short breathed? Bro, it's for that reason. It's because you're not getting as much oxygen to, your bloodstream, to your brain. So that's pretty crazy to think about, man. That in itself is that it reduces oxygen and blood flow. So that's wild. So I noticed that on the second day, and I think it lasted like, I noticed it on like the second day and the third day, and then it went away, and it would come back like like more like less intensity. I noticed that until like the day 5, right? Usually it would come back like if I was doing something, some kind of workout or like some type of strenuous activity. Like I would just feel like a mild headache, but it would go away. But the headaches, you would notice them for like 2 or 3 days, um, and they will start like around the second day. Okay, so that's one of the cons, one of the withdrawals that I wrote. The second thing that I wrote is irritated eyes. All right, this is something that it just caught me off guard. I just randomly started like, my eyes just felt really like irritated. They just felt like kind of itchy, and then they just started getting like watery, and that probably has a lot to do with what I was just saying right now. Is like how it, when you stop drinking caffeine, it, the blood flow is just kind of rushes to like different parts of your body. Um, so I think that's what it was. It's just like a lot of blood flow, like in my nerves, like in my eyes or something, which makes it like more irritated and stuff. Because like the other night, I mean, it's happened twice, like between these last 2 weeks, is where like my eyes have felt like really irritated like that. And then I wake up and like like my left eye right here is like all puffy. It's just so like dry and like irritated and stuff. But right now I feel good. But last night it was bad, right? So irritated eyes, man. The next thing that I wrote for withdrawals is sneezing. I'd be sneezing like crazy, bro. These last 2 weeks I just be sneezing. I don't know why. It's just you get flu-like symptoms, man. When you stop drinking caffeine, you literally get sick, bro. And especially like if you do it cold turkey like I did, I I wanted to do it cold turkey like that because I just wanted to get it over with. Like I didn't want to be tapering down and prolonging the process of you know just getting rid of it, bro. Because like I said, it's addicting. So like if you just minimize it, your body's gonna want to drink more. Okay, so I've always been the cold turkey type of person for anything really. So that's just me. A lot of people say that they'll taper down on it, but it's all preference at the end of the day. But that's what I wrote. Just sneezing, just sneezing. And you could look these things up on Reddit. I've also been on Reddit on the the subreddit, decaf, and there's like a lot of testimonies of people just talking about like their experiences, and it's pretty interesting to read. But a lot of people do experience like flu-like symptoms. Um, so another withdrawal that I notice is, just like my sinuses, like just blowing my nose a lot, but at the same time, at the same time, it's like dry. Like my sinuses like get dry as well. So like the inside of my nose, it just feels like really dry and it's like uncomfortable. Okay, but at the same time, I would be like sneezing and then just like I'll just be like blowing my nose, but then you know some time would go by and then it would be like all dry and stuff. So yeah, it's not fun. Another thing that I wrote is insomnia. All right, so yes, when you stop drinking caffeine, it can give you like more restful sleep, but at the same time, it's just your body needs to adjust. I mean, your mind needs to adjust to no caffeine, so it could actually have you could actually still be having insomnia. You know, where you be tired and then you go to sleep and then you just randomly like wake up at night like for no reason. Um, and all nights like for the past 2 weeks, like it hasn't been like that like every single night. There's some nights where I sleep so good, I have like the vivid dreams and all that stuff. But there's other nights where I just randomly just like wake up, and it's just like over time it'll be a lot better. Over time it's just gonna be a lot better. Uh, but for now it's just my mind is just getting used to it. So I have a little bit of insomnia, which is annoying, guys. Like it's so annoying when you can't go to sleep and you're just like right. Another thing that I wrote is back aches. Okay, um like when you stop drinking caffeine, guys, like you just feel like your muscles just feel like kind of sore a little bit. They're not too bad. Like for me, like I just notice it more like on my back. Like my back just feels a little bit more tight, right? But that's for the same reason, like when you're drinking caffeine, your body tenses up. Okay, since you're in that fight or flight, your body is more tense. So if you're constantly drinking caffeine day after day, you're constantly in a state of, being tense and stressed and, all these stress hormones. And so your body's always like tight, right? So like like if you would squeeze your hand and you would hold it like this for, a minute, after a while it's gonna get tired. So like when you let go, it's just gonna be like a relief, but it's gonna hurt. Okay. Um, so yeah, just like muscle aches, some people could experience like joint pains, just feeling like, your bones hurting or your joints, but I haven't really experienced that too much. Um, it's probably because I've been hydrating a lot too. That has a lot to do with it. But you can experience that though, like just aches and stuff. But it will pass. So the next thing that I wrote is less energy. All right, for the con. You know, I mean, this is obvious, right? Like caffeine doesn't actually give you energy. If you didn't know that already, like it really doesn't give you energy. You're basically, what caffeine does is it blocks, receptors in your brain to make you feel like you're not tired. So, like, you could be tired right now, and then if you drink caffeine, you're still tired, like from like on like your true self. Like you're tired, but you're masking it with caffeine. So, a lot of people, they could be tired for days and days and weeks and months, right? And they're constantly masking it with caffeine. Um, so they're basically neglecting their body, and it's like you're taxing your own body. It's like you're borrowing your own energy. Okay, you're just kind of like tricking your mind into thinking that you're not tired and you don't need rest. And so when you stop drinking caffeine, bro, you're just gonna feel like exhausted, right? Because your body's like not used to that. Okay, so obviously like less energy. um and another thing that I wanted to talk about is like I said, like caffeine doesn't actually give you energy, but it just gives you a stress response, because caffeine is just what do you call it? It's basically a plant defense mechanism. Like when insects eat like the caffeine, it like kills them, right? Or it's like that's basically like the caffeine's way in just like defending itself. But us as humans, we're not insects, right? So obviously, like, we're not gonna die immediately, but your body like trips out. When you have caffeine, it starts producing like the stress hormones. So you feel like you're energetic, but you're just stressed out. You're just on cortisol, right? You're just on adrenaline. And bro, like, if you think about how nasty that is, bro, like, if you'd be doing that every day, or constantly, you're just like taxing your body, man. Your adrenal glands, you're just taxing that. So you're constantly like in a fight or flight mode. So and that's another thing that I realized, guys, is like, how do you expect to have like a solid foundation in your life if you're always like in these, because like caffeine is just like a lower emotion. Like I said, it's more like a survival, like, you know uh get things done, right? But you're basically, artificially like putting yourself in that mode. Like, we have this fight or flight response, like, naturally. Like, if we're in danger, if we see like a bear, or we need to escape, our body naturally tenses up, raises the blood pressure, like, makes us more alert, but you're in that fear. So drinking caffeine, you're putting yourself in a fearful state. You're putting yourself on a vibration and an ener- energetic mode of like fear, like, within yourself. That's the type of energy that you're emitting. So another thing that I noticed, speaking on this topic, is like, people just treat you better, like, when you're not drinking caffeine. Okay. And the reason for that is because you're more calm, bro. Like, your energy is more like peaceful. You're not all like, like, all, tweaking out over here. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not over here just like with this fearful, like, fight or flight type of energy about yourself. You just feel more grounded, more stoic, all that good stuff, man. So, um, I think that's pretty much it. I think I had to say what I had to say. I'm feeling a lot better now, guys. I just wanted to make a 2 week update. I was thinking about waiting until a month, but I just wanted to, since like I'm kind of like experiencing this as I go, like, I kind of wanted to make a video on it, and I think I covered a lot of good topics on this video. But that's what I've been experiencing, guys. Cutting caffeine for 2 weeks, or not being on caffeine for 2 weeks. Those are the pros and the cons that I've experienced. So to recap the video, the pros is a calm mind and body, feeling more stoic, better quality hair and skin, deeper sleep, vivid dreams, stable energy, saving money, better digestion, less trips to the bathroom, less desire to consume content, natural high, more hydrated. And for the cons, headaches, irritated eyes, sneezing, dry and wet sinuses, insomnia, back aches, less energy. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. That's basically the video of today. I don't have the book right now, but I'm currently reading this book that I read it before, but I'm reading it again with like a new awareness, and it's called Caffeine Blues. A lot of people have recommended that book, and it's just like, it just exposes caffeine, guys. It just exposes caffeine, and just really, like, it's really easy to read, guys. Like, the book just makes it, it's just like, makes it so obvious, right? Like, it's not super like complicated to understand. It's just like what I've been talking about. But that book is really cool. I'm just rereading it. It's called, like I said, Caffeine Blues. Um, but yeah, man, going back on another, you know, caffeine-free lifestyle, right? Because, like, I feel like I haven't given myself enough time to experience like my natural energy. Because I be retaining, obviously, as you guys know, but sometimes I feel like caffeine definitely like kills your benefits, bro. It really does. So you could be on SR, guys, but if you're drinking a lot of caffeine, it's just gonna ruin your journey. Things aren't gonna go as smooth. But like, when you're not doing that, when you're just, retaining your energy, drinking water, like working out, bro, like, the energy is just so different. You just feel magnetic. You know what I'm saying? Like, your energy literally feels more magnetic. People treat you nicer. You know, you look healthier, you look like way better, man. Your energy is way more attractive. Your body, your face, everything is more attractive when you're not constantly drinking caffeine. So, yeah, man. Like I said, that's all I wanted to talk about. So let me know what you guys think about this video. I have a couple videos on this channel that I talked about caffeine before in the past, and I should have stopped drinking this like, since like last year, right? But I was still, just like I said, just continuing. Like sometimes things aren't good for you, but sometimes you just keep doing them anyways because it's convenient, and you're like stuck in a trap, and like, you know what I'm saying, guys? But I don't want to be one of these people that was like, yeah, I've been drinking caffeine for like 10 or 15 years, and they have like all these insane like problems, and it takes them like the withdrawals are even like 10 times worse than what I'm talking about myself. Like, so, I just want to end it now. Like, the journey of like drinking caffeine, like, I just want to stop doing that, and just be my natural self, you know, completely off all that stuff, and have a more stable mind, stable energy, and being focused on what I want to like have in my life, man. Because, drinking caffeine can make you feel like frustrated and, pissed off and, just lustful. Like it intensifies like just like cheap dopamine, right? Like it's just, yeah. So, with that being said, probably said that like 4 times already, but I think I'm gonna have to end the video now. We already at 31 minutes. But yeah, man, getting back into the gym, getting swole. You know what I'm saying? So, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.